It should be obvious to any manager, no matter how new, that the more engaged in their work an employee is, the more productive they will be, and the less likely to leave for another position. But in this time of remote working and the great resignation and economic uncertainty, what should a manager be doing to ensure maximum engagement of the members of their team? In this episode, we'll address this critical issue. Hi, I'm Rick Kendall.
And I'm Fred Ball.
Welcome to Management Mastery. The purpose of these podcasts is to share what each of us has learned about good and bad management in our combined over 40 years of experience, both as managers and executive coaches. During that time, we've coached managers at every level in companies from Fortune 100s to brand new startups in all major businesses, including nonprofits, government, and education. So whether you're just starting in your first management position or are an experienced manager looking to strengthen your management skills, we know our podcast will be valuable to you.
Since 2000, the Gallup organization, the famous polling company, has been studying the factors that affect employee engagement. What is it? Why is it important? And what are the factors that impact it, positively or negatively? Their findings provide valuable information for managers about maximizing the engagement of their team members, as well as provide valuable insights about important aspects of remote and hybrid working.
Just a word about the study we're discussing, Fred. As we said, Gallup has been studying employee engagement since 2000, and they've surveyed over 2.7 million employees in over 122,000 teams and business units over the past 23 years. In fact, Gallup actually invented the term employee engagement based on their research with employees and relating their findings to critical business outcome measures such as productivity, profitability, employee retention, and customer service.
That's a lot of people that they've been talking to. Much of what Gallup finds is consistent with a lot of what we have been saying to managers in this podcast, but puts some actual numbers behind it and shows how what we have been talking about relates directly to key business outcomes. The research also shows the critical importance of regular communication between a manager and their staffs. And when we say communication, we are talking about at least weekly individual conversations between a manager and each of their staff people. That assumes that there are not so many people that becomes difficult, in which case the manager has to do the best that they can.
Right. I mean, usually if you've got a huge staff, you've got subordinates who have smaller teams. So
absolutely.
It's really that one-on-one conversation that's important. And more specifically, Gallup finds that the most crucial aspect of engagement for an employee is knowing what's expected of them. This single factor has strong connections to critical business outcomes. Now, the good news, obviously, is that this is a part of management communication that is almost exclusively under the control of the supervising manager. Unlike corporate culture, or even to a large extent compensation and benefits, the manager has the power to communicate what is expected of an employee to the employee. The not so good news is that Gallup also found that since 2020, there has been a decline in clarity of expectations within the workforce. This is related to a number of changes that have impacted workers.
Rick, that's really an important thing that you're talking about. Which is the clarity of expectations. I find that over and over again in the coaching that I do. People assume that they've got it when many times they don't have it. And the boss has to keep coming back and clarify those expectations. As you were saying, this is related to a number of changes, one of which is called the Great Resignation, the larger than normal rate of turnover among U.S. workers. This has led to the restructuring of department teams, making team members less familiar with each other. 51% of managers surveyed said that the restructuring of their departments has been a major complication after the pandemic. In addition, 64% of managers, according to Gallup, said that their staffs now have additional job responsibilities and that customer expectations have become more demanding. We know about that with the customer expectations.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and it's so obvious the impact that the pandemic had on everybody and everything, but particularly the workforce. And the other thing that's impacted worker engagement, understandably, is remote and hybrid working. Whether you're in the office or working from home or a hybrid, it affects the way you interact with everybody. And the study found that hybrid and fully remote workers' knowledge of what is expected of them declined twice as fast as on-site workers whose jobs could have been done remotely. That is, the people who are in the office but doing the same job that people who are working remotely are doing understand much better what's expected of them. So that it makes sense. There's a lot more opportunity for that true face-to-face interaction that Gallup has said is so important.
In addition, despite the clear problems associated with having staff working remotely, 70% of managers told Gallup they had no formal training in how to lead a hybrid team. Well, cheer up, as we at Management Mastery have at least one episode in the works to cover just this topics. So watch, or more accurately, listen for it in the coming weeks.
But in terms of what impacts clarity of expectations the most, Gallup found a number of factors, but at the top of the list of things associated with a decline of clear expectations was whether the employee had received meaningful feedback from their supervisor in the past week. In short, staff want to know not only what's expected of them, but also how they're doing in living up to those expectations. And giving this kind of feedback on a regular basis, and by regular basis, the data clearly shows about every week or so, is the most powerful tool that will ensure that your staff are engaged in what they're doing.
Rick, this is what we've been talking about from the very beginning of doing our various podcasts, and that is that the relationship between someone and their boss is one of the most critical relationships that anyone can have. And knowledge workers in today's world want feedback, and they can take that feedback, whether it's good or bad, but they clearly want it, and they want to know it from the boss. They don't want to know it from someone else. They want to hear it directly. They also want praise once in a while. There's nothing wrong with telling somebody that they did a good job. They don't want praise just for the sake of praise for something that's meaningless. But they clearly want praise when they have done something well. So this feedback that we've been talking about in almost every one of our podcasts comes out so clearly in the Gallup data.
Oh yeah, it just establishes how central it is to employee morale, and I've got to believe that it's not just performance feedback. It's an interaction of how is it going? Are there any things that you don't understand? What can I do to help? What do you see as the next steps? I mean, just the expression of a caring involvement with the employee in terms of what they're doing, and a back and forth, as we've talked about, just checking in with them. And to me, the eye opener in all of this research was the frequency. We've we've talked about doing it regularly, but we've never put that kind of once a week interaction specifically. And the Gallup data clearly show that is a major driver in the employee feeling engaged and understanding what they're supposed to be doing and feeling good about doing it.
And all of those things that we've been talking about, all are part of what leads ultimately to building trust. And with young people, trust is one of the most important things that they are looking for in their work relationship. And ultimately, if the manager is not able to build trust with them, it may very well be a sign that they're looking for other work.
Yeah, that's always true. And the other thing, and we'll get into this more when we have the episode on remote working, but when you're not in the office, when you're not bumping into your boss or the boss bumping into employees, you don't have that kind of informal sort of water cooler interaction, and it's very easy for the boss to kind of take people for granted just because they're not in front of them all the time. So it's not surprising that the people working remotely have a poorer understanding of what's expected of them and lower engagement with the job, just because they're not in amongst their peers and with their boss on a regular basis.
I absolutely agree.
So in this episode, we've talked about employee engagement and how it's been shown repeatedly to correlate significantly to key business outcomes like productivity, profitability, and employee turnover. The data from massive surveys done by the Gallup organization since 2000 show that such engagement is largely in the hands of the employee's immediate manager. More specifically, the data show that the main driver of engagement is the extent to which the staff person knows what's expected of them and gets feedback on how they're doing from the manager on a weekly basis. We hope you have found this podcast useful and will come back again for more management mastery. If you have any comments about this or any of our episodes, or would like to find out more about our other services, including one-on-one coaching and group seminars for managers, visit our website at careercoachclass.com. Thanks for listening.